Welcome back to Digicel Businesses series Ahead of the Curve Business Talks. My name is Jaron Lewis and I am delighted to be your host. Ahead of the Curve is a show for ambitious business professionals who want to keep up to date with what's happening in the business world, get more out of their businesses, and stay ahead of their competition. I am going to be coming to you right here every month as we explore what it takes to build a successful company. That is, you guessed it, always ahead of the curve. So, to today's topic. The social media landscape is ever changing. New platforms come and go, social media marketing strategies evolve, and every generation of consumers brings new ways of interacting with social platforms. But let's take a minute to look at the state of the social media landscape. Over 4 billion people use social media worldwide. The average person has 8 social accounts. The average user spends nearly 2.5 hours on social media daily. 50% of 16 to 24-year-olds research products on social media. And 69% of marketers use social media to build brand awareness. So it's pretty obvious if you're looking to get your business noticed, grow your audience, and build your brand, social media is the way to go. And today, I'm delighted to say we have with us Mr. Rashid Girvan, Senior Campaign Performance Manager with Trend Media, who has extensive experience in helping businesses leverage social media so that they become digital marketing success stories. Rashid, thanks for being with us today.
My pleasure.
So I would like to know, of course, social media is all around us. We use it in our personal lives, but it's also, a big bit for businesses. And what I really would like to know is in terms of defining a digital strategy, how much does the size of a business and even the industry that it operates in influence the definition of that strategy and how they go about it?
Yeah, that's a very good question. You started out by saying that we use social media in our day-to-day lives, and more people are using social media for their day-to-day purposes, their individual purposes, and that is exactly the reason why so many businesses find the channel attractive. But it is definitely not a one-size-fits-all approach. The truth is that if you were to, as a business, go into social media without a clearly defined strategy, you run the risk of doing more harm than good for your brand. And so it is absolutely critical to, first of all, understand the different platforms that you're using. For example, Facebook have a certain value proposition that is not the same as, for example, Twitter or LinkedIn or Pinterest. And so it is very important for you to know the nuances of each platform, but even more important for you to know as a business, what are the goals, what are the objectives, what are you trying to achieve by going on social? Because as you mentioned, different industries will leverage the power of social media in different ways. Some of the very common objectives or KPIs are, for example, awareness. And awareness is used as a catch-all phrase to really cover certain deficiencies, I would say, in my personal opinion, in the social media strategy. After somebody is aware of your business, which is what awareness drives, what then? Are you in the business of doing online sales? And so are you ultimately looking to get sales or generate revenue from these social media strategies? Are you looking to generate leads, after which you will have a mechanism in place to have offline conversions of those leads? Some of those are, it seems relatively basic and simple, but I've found from my experience, not enough organizations or businesses, whether small, medium, or large, or fully understand those basic concepts and therefore don't do enough to properly strategize before going on social media.
Right. So, in light of all that you've just shared, would you say that every business needs a social media strategy then?
So that's another good question. Every business that chooses to be on social media does need a social media strategy. I will say that not every business should be on social media. Again, there has to be some thought in going into one. Do you need to be on social media, and why? What do you expect to achieve? There is a saying: the best way to kill a bad business is good advertising, and that, if you were to explore that statement, it means that if your business is not equipped to take on, for example, more customers, if you don't have the capacity to be able to properly service that influx of new customers and new orders, for example, then you really have to take stock of why you're going into social media. Things like the length of the sales funnel comes into question. How long does it take to earn a new customer? How long for example, is that lifetime value of the customer? Different things that you'd have to think about. If you've decided that it is a good decision for you to be on social, then definitely a social media strategy is critical. And that social media strategy has to do with what are you trying to communicate with your audience. As the name suggests, social, you need to be able to generate a conversation with your public. You need to be able to appear in a social way. And so it does require a significant amount of work, especially for a business, to develop that brand persona online, to be able to communicate. It's not just about what we call commercial-based activity. You're not just trying to sell, because you will turn off those customers. Unless it is that your strategy, of course, is just based on price, and all you want to communicate is that you have the lowest price. If that's your strategy, business strategy, then probably that is the only time I see where you can just post products and try to survive on social media or thrive on social media in that regard. Outside of that, just minimum price strategy, you need to be able to engage, inform, educate, give the public, the social media space is massive in terms of the volume of active users in that space. Give those persons a reason to come to your page. Give them a reason to engage with your brand online. Give them a reason to follow or like your posts. And usually that does not only include a commercial-based reason. You have to decide what is the brand essence, the persona. Why are people going to follow me versus somebody else in my industry or outside of the industry, just in general?
Okay, so I think my suspicion would be based on my conversations with some businesses as well. There will be businesses out there that obviously do not have a social media strategy, but the reason for that, in most of them I've found, is because they don't quite know where to start. So,
Right.
in your experience, what would be the most important first step in starting to develop that strategy?
And that's a very good point. Hope, by the way, is not a strategy. You can't just go on social and hope that you're going to wing it and you're going to be the diamond in the rough to be the one who is successful. There are tons of resources available from the social media platforms themselves, as well as other businesses, other small, medium, or large entities that provide content and guidance as it pertains to this strategy and what are some of the outcomes. Because if you think about it, the social media platforms, the owners themselves, it is in their best interest to have you, the business, or you, the entrepreneur, be successful on their platform. They have a platform with all these users, and the more they can pair users with pages or businesses, then the more likely that people will spend on those platforms. That is the real objective of the social media platform, right? In addition to making money, of course. So all it takes is a little bit of elbow grease, do a little bit of due diligence and dig. The platforms will tell you the strategies, and you'll be surprised. The platforms will actually help to break down and define what are some of the objectives. I made reference to awareness. Awareness is a very, what we call a top of funnel activity. Just to have your brand, people know about your brand is not enough, because that many businesses would have found that will not automatically translate in a sale. A like of your post will not necessarily translate to a sale. And so if it is that you're okay with just the likes and the awareness, and you're okay with, growing your following without it converting, then great, fabulous. But businesses have, I've found, evolved to another level of sophistication, and they want to leverage social or digital in general to help to grow the business. And much as anything that you want to grow, you have to know the nuances of that particular product or what you want to grow, and the environment. How you're going to grow your business on social or digital in general will be different from how you're going to grow the business organically, and will be a different strategy than what you'll do if you're going on TV or radio. So the short answer to your question is just do a little bit of research and be able to apply the results that you have found to your particular business, and just as importantly, to that particular point in time.
All right. So when you have so many social media platforms, and I know it can be difficult for a business to operate across all of them. Should that
Yes.
be the goal of each business, is to operate across all forms of social media? Or should they just be seeking to operate on one channel or two channels? What's the approach like there?
So that's a question that I get asked more often than not. And my answer is always, what do you want? What is your objective, Mr. Customer? Who is your ideal customer? And some persons know the answer to that question, some people do not. Some of the ways for you to get that answer, for example, is what is the lifetime value of that customer? How many transactions do you want for them to complete in a month or in 6 months or a year? And who would you ideally want to go after? And those questions will help you to identify the persona of who your ideal customer is. And that persona will lead you to the channel that you want to advertise on. I'll give you an example. If you, for example, are a financial institution or an investment house, or let's say an insurance company, right? Then chances are you would want to go after a high net worth individual. And so the question is, where online of all these platforms, of all these websites, which platform are you likely to find that individual? Well, it could be that Twitter is a good place to start. It could be that LinkedIn is a good place to start, as well as certain pages on Instagram. That is a good place to start the investigation. Are you, for example, a retail store that is selling consumables like earbuds and Bluetooth mouse or, that sort of a thing? Chances are, therefore, your business strategy is to going after volume sales. You want to go after relatively small ticket items, but you want to sell a lot of them. But, well, if that's the case, you want to go after a more mainstream platform like a Facebook or an Instagram, possibly Twitter as well. But the approach is going to be very different from the first example where compared to, for example, a financial institution. So it depends on the business, it depends on the objective, it depends on what you're trying to push. Because in the second example of a retail entity, are you trying to push a high value product? I don't know, a 70-inch TV screen? Or are you trying to sell the Bluetooth mouse? What is it that and to answer that question of what you're trying to push, some people say, oh, I want to push everything. Well, to help you to decide, what do you have, what's your inventory like? What do you want to move more of right now? For example, in this particular, whether it is season or this particular point in time, what do you make more money from? What generates the higher profit margins? If you, for example, were to sell out, I don't know, the 70-inch screen, does it take a long time for you to refill your orders? And so you don't necessarily want to sell out everything so that you have out of stock for 3-4 weeks. So all of these things plays into the peculiarities of each business. And so it goes to a point where social is an extension of the larger business strategy. And whatever your business strategy is and whatever you're trying to achieve, social should help you to propel you towards that goal.
That's excellent advice. People are getting or developing shorter and shorter attention spans. If you had just one tip for a company looking to advertise that doesn't want to fall victim to these short attention spans, what would that tip be?
So, again, you have a knack of asking these very good questions. You have a choice of knowing your audience and understanding the changes. I've been in digital, for example, for longer than I'd like to remember. Where we are now today is very, very different from where we were 12 months ago. I say that to say, it is best if you'd not try to go around it, but embrace the changes that your audience is having. Short attention span is a symptom of, the evolution driven largely by social media and technology. My advice would be to edit your content to fit that short attention span. We have conversations with customers around having a 60-second video or a 2-minute video. And more often than not, the customers are not watching the entire video. And so if the lottery numbers were available to the end of the video, many people will never get those lottery numbers, the essence of the video. And so it is important for you to create the content with that short attention span in mind. For example, moving your branding and to the front of the video, ensuring that you have a strong, compelling call to action towards the first 5 or 10 seconds of the video. Ensure that you break it up. If you can't communicate, which many businesses are not able to, if you can't communicate everything in that short video, create multiple videos and be able to communicate one message per video. If you're creating only still images, again, create multiple images, create a carousel, and give the customers the option to, first of all, be interested in the content, to engage with the content, and then they will scroll through to the carousel. Or if they were to, you were to divide your message into multiple parts, they will eventually see the essence of what you're trying to communicate.
Right. So we've spoken a lot about strategy, and we've talked about different approaches. But how do I know as a business owner if my strategy is effective at all? Is there anything that I should be looking at in terms of metrics that would help me?
So, it's very important to fail fast, fail often. And you might raise your eyebrow and say, what is he talking about, fail fast? By testing, you are formulating a test and you're going to know if that test is going to work. Fail fast, fail often means you're going to create multiple tests and you're not going to wait a long time to see if it will grow in. You want to look at engagement rate. If you create 3 different posts and the one post with, you have different talents, you have different messages, you're going to always want to optimize to the top performing message or video. And there are certain key ways for you to measure that effectiveness. Things like engagement. So how often do people click on the ad? How often do the view through rate? How long do people view the videos? Shares or engagements. is this message compelling enough that would have driven a member of the public, whether they follow you on Instagram, on Facebook, whether they're a follower or not, to actually share it to a loved one or friend? Then that is how you know that, one, the creative is working, the message is working, the call to action is working. Because, and we deal with multinational entities all the time, the reality is what works in one part of the country will not necessarily work in another part of the country. And what works in one island will not necessarily work in another island. And so you have to test, fail often, but also ensure that you know the nuances of each particular target group that you're focusing on. And most importantly, don't start at square one. Ensure that you're using the learnings from previous campaigns to inform creating subsequent campaigns. And so you're building on that. If, for example, you know that this particular offer resonates better with persons younger, so between the 18 to 25 age group, and you realize that they like a 10-second video versus a 30-second video, well, what you're going to do is for the next campaigns, you are very deliberate in targeting that target audience within that video length with that message, and you explore more. And so it requires, again, going back to strategy, that you are deliberate, you're organized, you record your learnings, and you impart those learnings on subsequent campaigns.
Great. So we've spoken about awareness, we've spoken about engagement. There's the other obvious one, which is following. In terms of those three factors, is there any business or brand you see out there today that does very well with, awareness, engagement, and following that businesses and business owners who are listening to us chat right now should emulate?
That's a little bit of a difficult question and it's difficult because there is no one line in the sand. Different organizations, different businesses will have different objectives. So, and we don't necessarily know from outside looking in what that objective is. It could be that they're looking to just generate awareness, and so we don't know necessarily what their campaigns are. At Digicel, we try to ensure that we are looking to have strong engagement, but we've gone beyond just doing awareness and reach, but we are looking to leverage these platforms to drive useful data, such as we're looking to generate, for example, leads. And it does require a more setup in the background and more measurement. But as an outsider looking in, people would not necessarily know how well that campaign is doing or not doing. There is something to be said that companies need to realize that there's such a thing as creative fatigue. And there is a time when you are bombarding the customers too much. Customers need to realize that there is a point at which there is a point of diminishing returns where you are serving your ads too much to any one particular customer. And so one of the bits of advice we could give to customers is to look at your frequency capping. And what that means is you want to ensure that you have set a maximum number of time that your ad will actually appear to a customer at any particular point in time. So for example, I'll set a frequency cap of 3 servings, ad servings per day. Because beyond that, I run the risk of becoming too pushy to that customer, and that might be a turnoff.
Okay.
You could set a frequency capping for the week, or per day, or whatever time period. That's something that persons need to be aware of as well.
I think that's really good advice. So, the world of social media changes every day, it seems, sometimes multiple times a day even. Would you say that there is one marketing trend on the horizon with regards to social media that businesses should be aware of?
So, Facebook/Meta is on the cusp of going further in revolutionizing how users interact with Facebook and Instagram and the different platforms. So that's a very interesting space. Once users evolve, then businesses and how corporate use those platforms will also evolve. I would say the most significant trend that users and businesses must be aware of is the power of AI, of artificial intelligence and machine learning, because this allows users to be able to, and not only users but business owners as well, to be able to leverage significantly more complicated algorithm than an individual or a human could ever leverage. And so again, it feeds into this AI, feeds into the whole concept of testing and being able to identify top performing market segments, top performing targeting segments, top performing ads, and so on, which means that over a period of time, you will be able to significantly improve the quality of your campaigns. Now, when I talk about quality of campaigns, we're talking about, for example, driving down costs. The cost of reaching people, or the cost of, for example, generating your lead, the cost of generating a sale. Lowest cost is not necessarily best for your campaign. What do I mean by that? If you have your setup to allow, for example, Facebook to drive your advertising campaign to maximize revenue or to maximize a lead, then you're telling the platform, the system, the machine, to go out and find the best leads wherever they are that might convert, the best people who are most likely to convert to a lead. That may not be the cheapest lead. And so you have to be able to, again, that feeds into the strategy. You want to ensure that you have enough budget to be able to allow the machine to learn and allow the machine to do what it does, to leverage its insight, to be able to put your ads in front of the people who are most likely to convert. And that machine learning applies to not only Facebook and Instagram, but also other platforms, Twitter, but significantly the Google ecosystem does leverage a lot of machine learning to improve the performance of your campaigns. It may not be necessarily the cheapest cost, but it will eventually be the most effective use of your advertising dollar.
Great. Rashid, I think this has been an incredibly informative session. You've given loads of great advice here. And I know that social media is such a vast world that we've only just begun to touch the tip of the iceberg here. But unfortunately, we're out of time, so we'll have to stop it there for today. But before we go, I just want to say, a big thank you to you. Like I said, the knowledge that you've imparted here, I'm sure will leave all our listeners in a way better position when it comes to social media and marketing.
It was a pleasure. Always a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you, Rashid. And thanks again to you, our listeners. We hope you've enjoyed this month's episode of Ahead of the Curve Business Talks. And I'll see you back here next month for our next information-packed installment. Thanks again for tuning into today's show. See you soon as we continue Ahead of the Curve Business Talks.